Every person, at some point, asks the same question: why am I here? We search for meaning in work, love, success, and faith. Yet when life falls apart, when pain replaces comfort and loss replaces hope, the question becomes harder to answer. It was in the darkest time in human history that Viktor Frankl, an Austrian psychiatrist, discovered something extraordinary about the human spirit. He was imprisoned in several Nazi concentration camps, including Auschwitz, where he lost his parents, his brother, and his pregnant wife. Surrounded by death and cruelty, he realized that survival was not just a matter of luck or strength, but of meaning. In the camps, Frankl watched as people who had a reason to live, a person to love, a purpose to fulfill, a faith to hold, were far more likely to survive than those who felt life no longer had meaning. He saw that even when every freedom was taken away, one freedom always remained: the freedom to choose one's attitude. From this realization came a new branch of psychology that Frankl later called logotherapy, the therapy of meaning. Unlike Freud, who believed we are driven by pleasure, or Adler, who believed we seek power, Frankl believed that our greatest drive is the will to meaning. Humans can endure almost anything, he said, as long as they can find a why behind their suffering. Man's Search for Meaning is not just a book about survival. It is about hope, resilience, and the inner strength that appears when everything else is lost. Frankl doesn't deny the reality of pain, but he teaches that even pain can hold purpose if we face it with dignity. This book is divided into two parts. The first describes Frankl's personal experiences in the camps, a journey through despair, faith, and psychological insight. The second introduces logotherapy, his theory that finding meaning is the key to mental health and fulfillment. Decades later, this message still feels urgent. In a world full of comfort and distraction, many people still feel empty inside. Frankl called this emptiness the existential vacuum, a life without direction or purpose. His work reminds us that meaning is not found in what happens to us, but in how we respond. In this summary, we'll walk through Frankl's lessons about suffering, freedom, love, and the search for purpose, and discover how even the worst experiences can become a source of strength. Because, as Viktor Frankl wrote, when we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. Life in the camps, the psychology of suffering. Viktor Frankl's story begins when he was taken from his home in Vienna and sent to the Nazi concentration camps. In a single moment, everything that gave his life meaning, his family, his work, his freedom, was stripped away. He was reduced to a number, surrounded by barbed wire and constant death. But even there, in that world of suffering, he began to study the human mind. Frankl noticed that the prisoners went through several psychological stages. The first stage was shock, the disbelief and numbness that came with realizing their old life was gone forever. People could not grasp what was happening. It felt like a nightmare they would soon wake from. The second stage was apathy. As days turned into months, pain became normal. People stopped reacting to death, stopped caring, and stopped feeling. It was the brain's way of protecting itself from constant trauma. But apathy also meant danger. When someone stopped hoping, they often stopped living. Frankl saw that hope was the one thing that kept people alive. He wrote that the prisoner who had lost faith in the future, his future, was doomed. Those who believed they still had a reason to live, a loved one waiting for them, unfinished work, or even a cause to serve, had a strength that others did not. In the camps, survival was rarely about physical strength. It was about mental endurance. Two men could experience the same hunger, the same cold, and the same fear, but one would give up while the other endured. The difference, Frankl said, was not circumstance but meaning. Even the smallest act of kindness, sharing a crust of bread, comforting a stranger, or choosing to smile, became an act of defiance against despair. In a place designed to destroy humanity, these moments proved that the human spirit could not be broken. Frankl realized that even in a camp where almost nothing could be controlled, there was still one freedom left: the freedom to choose one's attitude. No one could take that away. Life in the camps was not just a physical trial, but a psychological experiment in resilience. It showed that humans are capable of surviving almost anything if they believe their life still has purpose. Those who have a why to live, Frankl wrote, can bear almost any how. Meaning through love, work, and purpose. In the midst of horror, Viktor Frankl discovered that meaning is not found only in how we face suffering, but also in how we connect with life itself. Even when everything else was stripped away, love, purpose, and creativity remained as invisible sources of strength. For Frankl, the highest expression of meaning was love. He described moments in the camps when, despite the darkness, he would think of his wife. He did not know if she was alive, but in those moments of deep reflection, her image gave him comfort and courage. He realized that love exists beyond physical presence. It is a connection of spirit. Love, he wrote, is the ultimate and highest goal to which man can aspire. When people live for someone or something greater than themselves, they find reasons to keep going. This could be love for a person, devotion to a cause, or commitment to unfinished work. Frankl saw that prisoners who still felt responsible for someone or something outside themselves, even an idea, were much more likely to survive. Meaning can also be found through work and creation. Frankl believed that human beings have a deep need to contribute, to bring something into the world that did not exist before: a book, a painting, a business, or even a single act of kindness. Creating something meaningful transforms life from mere survival into purpose. Finally, meaning can come from courage and attitude, the way we carry ourselves even when life is unfair. Some prisoners chose compassion over bitterness, dignity over despair. That choice, Frankl realized, gave them a spiritual strength that no external power could take away. He later summarized these ideas in his theory of logotherapy, which teaches that meaning can be discovered in 3 ways: by creating a work or doing a deed, giving something valuable to the world; by experiencing love, caring for another person deeply; by the attitude we take toward unavoidable suffering, turning tragedy into triumph. Meaning is therefore not a luxury, it is a necessity. It is what allows humans to live with direction, even when the path is difficult. Frankl's insight was simple but revolutionary. The human being is not destroyed by pain or failure, but by the absence of meaning. To live with purpose, through love, work, and responsibility, is to live fully. Freedom of the mind, choosing your attitude. In the camps, Viktor Frankl lost everything: his family, his freedom, his identity, and nearly his life. Yet he discovered one thing that could never be taken away: the freedom to choose one's attitude. Every day in the camps was a test of the human spirit. Prisoners had no control over their food, sleep, or safety, but they still had control over one thing: how they responded to their suffering. Some chose bitterness and gave up hope. Others, even in despair, chose kindness, dignity, and faith. Frankl realized that this inner freedom was the last of all human freedoms. He observed that even when people were stripped of everything, they still possessed the power of choice. A person could decide to curse the guards or silently forgive them. They could give away a piece of bread to someone weaker, or they could keep it. These small choices determined whether a person's spirit was broken or unbroken. Frankl wrote, "Everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances." This discovery became the foundation of his philosophy. Life is not defined by what happens to us, but by how we respond. Between stimulus and response, there is a space, and in that space lies our power to decide. Even outside the camps, this truth applies to all people. We cannot always control what life brings, but we can control how we meet it, with fear or with courage, with despair or with meaning. The way we think shapes the quality of our lives far more than external conditions ever can. Frankl believed that this ability to choose gives life its moral beauty. When a person chooses goodness, despite pain, they rise above their circumstances. When they choose faith instead of bitterness, they affirm their humanity. Freedom of the mind is therefore not just resistance, it is creation. It turns suffering into strength and chaos into clarity. In a world where many people feel powerless, this idea is deeply liberating. We are never completely victims of fate, we are participants in it. The ultimate freedom lies not in changing the world around us, but in mastering the world within us. Logotherapy, the psychology of meaning. After surviving the camps, Viktor Frankl returned to his work as a psychiatrist with a new understanding of the human mind. He had seen the extremes of human behavior: cruelty and compassion, despair and faith, destruction and dignity. From these experiences, he developed a new form of therapy he called logotherapy, built on one simple but profound belief: man's main concern is not to gain pleasure or to avoid pain, but rather to see a meaning in his life. Where Freud believed that people are driven by the search for pleasure, and Adler believed that people seek power, Frankl argued that the deepest human drive is the will to meaning. When people lose meaning, they lose direction. When they find it, they can endure almost anything. Logotherapy is based on three key principles: freedom of will, will to meaning, and meaning in life. Freedom of will means that no matter what happens, we always have the freedom to choose our response. Even when we cannot control our environment, we can control our inner world. Will to meaning is the natural human desire to find purpose in what we do, to feel that our life matters to someone or something beyond ourselves. Meaning in life teaches that every situation, even the painful ones, offers an opportunity to discover purpose. There is no such thing as a meaningless moment, only a moment we have not yet understood. Frankl believed that many modern psychological problems, emptiness, depression, and apathy, come from what he called an existential vacuum. In a world filled with comfort and freedom, people often feel lost because they lack a why. They confuse pleasure with purpose and activity with fulfillment. Logotherapy helps people overcome this vacuum by asking not, "What do I expect from life?" but, "What does life expect from me?" That single shift in thinking transforms the patient from a passive observer into an active participant in their own existence. Life, Frankl said, is not something to be questioned, but something to be answered. Through his therapy, patients were encouraged to find meaning in three main ways: through creation, doing work, or contributing something valuable to the world; through love, caring deeply for another person; through courage, facing suffering with dignity when there is no other choice. Logotherapy is not abstract philosophy. It is a practical way of living. It reminds us that no life is ever truly empty if we look for meaning in responsibility, in love, and even in loss. Frankl's insight reshaped modern psychology, blending science with spirituality. He showed that healing doesn't always come from avoiding pain, but from discovering purpose within it. When people understand why they live, they can face almost any how. Lessons for modern life. Meaning in a comfortable world. Viktor Frankl wrote, "Man's search for meaning," after witnessing the worst conditions imaginable. Yet his message is perhaps even more relevant today. In a world where comfort is abundant, but purpose often feels absent. Modern life gives us more freedom, technology, and convenience than any generation before us. We can travel the world, connect instantly, and choose from endless options. And yet many people feel lost, anxious, or unfulfilled. Frankl warned about this decades ago. He called it the existential vacuum, a sense of emptiness that grows when life has pleasure but no purpose. People fill this void in many ways, chasing wealth, attention, or distractions. But meaning cannot be downloaded, bought, or consumed. It must be discovered. Frankl taught that meaning is not something we invent. It already exists in every situation, waiting to be found through our choices. He believed that true fulfillment comes from responsibility, not comfort. Each person is responsible for shaping their own life through the values they live by and the people they serve. Happiness, he said, cannot be pursued directly. It appears as a side effect of living meaningfully, of doing work that matters, of loving someone deeply, of standing firm through challenges. In a world where success is often measured by status or speed, Frankl's lesson is a quiet rebellion. Slow down, ask why, and listen to what life is asking of you. The question is not, what can I get from the world, but what can I give to it? Even suffering has meaning if we face it with purpose. Setbacks can teach resilience, loss can deepen compassion, and uncertainty can strengthen faith. Frankl reminds us that no life is without value, and no moment is without potential for growth. His ideas speak directly to our time, an age of noise, distraction, and endless choice. He invites us to stop running and start reflecting, because meaning is not found in the pursuit of more, but in the discovery of enough. Ultimately, Frankl's message is a call to responsibility, to live intentionally, to serve something greater than ourselves, and to meet life's questions with courage. The modern world may have changed, but the human search for meaning remains the same. And in that search lies the quiet strength that makes life worth living. Final takeaways. The meaning of life is to give life meaning. At the heart of Viktor Frankl's man's search for meaning lies one timeless truth. Life is never made unbearable by circumstance, but by the loss of meaning and purpose. Frankl's experiences in the camps revealed that human beings can endure almost anything if they have a why. When a person understands their purpose, whether it is love, work, or faith, suffering becomes not an enemy, but a challenge to rise above. He teaches that meaning is not a luxury reserved for the fortunate. It is available to everyone at every moment. It exists in our relationships, in our responsibilities, and even in our struggles. Every situation, no matter how painful, carries a hidden question. How will you respond? Frankl's message is not about avoiding pain, but about transcending it. We cannot always control what happens, but we can always control how we choose to see it. That freedom, the freedom to find meaning, is the essence of being human. In today's world, his words remain a gentle guide. They remind us that success without purpose feels empty, and comfort without direction leads to restlessness. Real peace comes not from avoiding life's difficulties, but from facing them with courage and intention. Meaning is not something we wait to find. It is something we create through our actions, our love, and our perseverance. When we give our life meaning, we give it strength, beauty, and direction. Frankl once wrote, "The meaning of life is to give life meaning." That is his final and eternal lesson. That even in darkness, life still calls to us, asking not what it can give, but what we can bring to it. When we answer that call, we begin to live fully. If this summary touched you, keep exploring with MindShelf, where timeless books meet modern insight. Subscribe on YouTube for more summaries on psychology, purpose, and the art of living with meaning. Download the MP3 version and explore more life-changing summaries at mindshelf.net. Because meaning isn't found by chance, it's created by choice, and every day is a chance to begin again.